Worldwide parent coach and conscious educator Sue DeCaro is on a mission to revitalize the joy in parenting. Welcome to Conscious Parents, Thriving Kids, a podcast designed to help parents all over the world create deeper connections with themselves and their children while overcoming life's daily parenting challenges. Listen in if you want to bring more laughter, love, and enjoyment to your home life.
Welcome to Conscious Parents, Thriving Kids, a place for all things parenting. I am your host, Sue DeCaro.
Today, I am so excited for this episode and to welcome my special guest, Sarah Andersen. Sarah is a certified personal development and life coach for teen girls and young women. She lives in San Diego, California, and coaches girls all over the country. She is certified through Teen Wisdom Life Coaching, Institute for Integrated Nutrition, and the Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. She is the founder of the Real Girl Lifestyle, where she works with girls one-to-one, leads small groups, and speaks nationally about girl empowerment. In her coaching sessions, Sarah focuses on developing the teen's strength and using creative tools and strategies to help them face challenges and obstacles with confidence. Sarah is also the director of the Graced by Grit Foundation, which provides opportunities for girls to discover and develop their grit through empowerment events and a student athletic scholarship fund. Sarah, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, let's dive right in and talk about these beautiful teens.
Yes.
And I'd love to start with our role as parents in their lives. Can you share a little bit about the importance of being a parent in a teenager's life right now, especially teen girls, since that's your specialty?
Yes. So the parent role in a teenager's life is so important. And I know a lot of parents of teens complain or laugh that they thought, the infant or the toddler stage was going to be the most challenging. And then they get to the teenage stage and now they have this, full human being who has its own thoughts and developing their own values. And sometimes that can collide with the parents. And so I think a lot of parents of teens take a step back and think, oh, well, they're a teenager, they know what they're doing. And I see it as the teenager is still a kid. Their bodies are growing, their brains are still growing. And so I think the parent's role of a teenager is to find that balance of being involved and yet still allowing the teenager to make their own decisions and find their own way. And remember, as a parent, their brains aren't developed until they're 25 years old. So they still have a long way to go of parenting.
And that number scares parents because it's moving up to 30 right now. It's closer to 30.
Yes.
I love what you shared. And if I could add, I think one of the things we forget as parents is that teenagers' hormones are raging.
Yes.
The stress they're experiencing outside of our home, in schools, social situations, academics. And I find with most of the parents I work with, it's a push-pull dynamic.
Yes.
So the child, the child, as you said, wants some independence, but they're also very young. And so at any given moment, it can be a push or it can be a pull. So as parents, just being ready and open to whatever shows up. I call it sometimes these kids are taken over by aliens. We don't realize yes, our child, because like, wait, who are you in this moment?
Exactly.
That's when they need us most, is when the confusion kicks in and during that push-pull dynamic.
Yes, I agree. I love the push-pull dynamic. I do use that in a lot of my coaching calls to help explain to the teenagers as well, hey, your parents, you're pushing them away and then you're wanting them to be there. So I always try to, have the teenagers learn that as well, because then they are like, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't realize I can be so mean to my mom in 1 minute. And then the next I'm like, I need you and I need help. And parents are like, what just happened? Where's my daughter? And so I think parents understanding that as well as the teens, and parents talking to the teens about that. Don't be afraid to tell your teenage daughter, hey, when you're like this, I don't know what to do sometimes, because I think a lot of parents fear they need to have all the answers, and teenagers aren't looking for the perfect parent. They're looking for a parent they can relate to and talk to. Like you said, give them the freedom at the same time, have boundaries in place. And the more open communication you can have with your teen to say, help me out here. What would you do in this situation? Or this is what I did when I was a teen. Teens need that connection and that realness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How can we best support them? So
Mm-hmm.
one of the topics that is near and dear to my heart is healthy body image. And I worked in the field of we'll call it healthy body image, but of course it was disorders, and for quite some time, and really found that this was an area that many are suffering. I mean, not just our teens, but many are suffering. And
Yes.
so, when we talk about this and bringing health and wellness to our bodies, what does that word mean, healthy? And how can we actually create that in our homes and families with our tweens and teens?
Great question. And this is definitely an area that, like yourself, I've done a lot of work with, especially with my background in nutrition and wellness. And I've myself struggled as a teen and as a young adult with what healthy means to me. And I've gone to both spectrums. I've been quote unquote unhealthy, where I just didn't care and was more concerned with, feeling good in the moment. And then I've been on the other spectrum where I became really obsessed with health and thought that you had to be perfect to be healthy. So I always use my own experience to share with parents and teens that, there is going to be, just like you said, with the push and pull, there is this testing out what healthy means to the teen, and they have to experience that on a feeling base also versus just how they look. So how I've worked with, especially girls, and I'm not saying teen boys don't struggle in the same way, but I tend to see more insecurity and, disordered eating around teenage girls and young women. Surprisingly, a lot of the disordered eating or just the mindset starts in middle school. And so it's very young these days. And that's a lot to do with the exposure to social media and things that they have access to that I didn't see when I was younger in middle school. So a lot of it starts with how the parent approaches food and what wellness is like in the house, because that's really where the teenager spends most of the time. Yes, they go to school and hear about it, but their home base and foundation is the parent, parents plural, or whatever the home is. And so I think the first step is to look as a parent, how do you describe wellness? What does healthy mean to you? Are you just focused on it as a food, or do you see it as more of your life and what you're feeding yourself with your relationships and how satisfied you are with your job? So helping teens see that it's not just about food, because then it just becomes so hyper focused on, again, that bad food versus good food, and they aren't connecting it to how they feel or in terms of energy it provides and how it fuels their body, not just as a size.
I love that. And so there's a few things that popped up for me. And the first is it's a way of life. True.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
And so I can think back, no names mentioned, but I can think back to scenarios where, parents I have known have had what we call this food drawer or candy closet. And so trying to create health and wellness, quote, health and wellness around the children, but hiding out the snacks, the mom
Yes.
snacks or dad snacks somewhere else. And children are way too smart for this kind of thing. They can detect when we have practices that are completely different from what we're preaching.
Absolutely.
So we have to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yes, exactly. And be aware of that. I mean, the first step of that is looking at as yourself as a parent, what do I do in that regard? Where do I still need to work on myself and heal my relationship with food, or like we said, the lifestyle aspect? Because how I really describe wellness to the teens is your body is the vehicle for which you experience life. You have this one body, and that's how you experience going to prom. That's how you experience going to college. That's how you experience being in a movie. All these things that girls and teens want to experience in life, you have to have your body with you. You can't separate from it. So the sooner that you learn to love it and respect it and listen to it, your life will be so much more fulfilling. It's not just about how, again, you want to like how you look. And I hope girls take pride in taking care of themselves, but that looks different for each girl. And again, it's the avenue for which they experience life and their happiness overall. So I, again, try to, and parents should see that as well for themselves, or not should, I don't like using that word, but they could look at, how am I using my body to experience life? Am I using it in a way that makes me feel good? Am I taking care of it to where I feel energized and I can show up as a parent? Am I having fun? All the other things that it's, again, taking away just from the food I'm putting in it, but how are you using it to experience life and be the example you want for your teens?
I love that. Be the example. Let's one of the other things that popped up is a story, just briefly I'll share. I was just talking about the story the other day. When I was a child, I remember going out with my mother, and we were at some bakery in one of the large department stores, and I must have wanted a muffin, and my mother said, "Oh, you can't have that muffin, that has 1,000 calories."
Mm.
Now, I don't remember having a weight issue or being obsessed with food in any way, but I remember the language she used to this day. And it's been a number of years, I'm not revealing my age, but it's been a long time. And so,
It still sticks with you.
it still sticks with me that a
Mhm.
muffin has, 1,000 calories. And so, I share this because I think the other part of this is not just what we do and how we are the example, but words carry weight. I mean,
Yes.
these words carried weight for several decades.
Yes.
So, share in your experience because, you're working with the teens right now, what you see in terms of the words and how, you're seeing those to carry weight both positively and maybe in a negative fashion.
Yes, that's a great point. And I'm curious, do you like muffins now?
Actually, I have a gluten and grain intolerance. Who would
Got
have
it.
thought?
Okay.
But but honestly, Sarah, I don't remember. I think it created an aversion to muffins.
Yeah.
Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, those are bad.
Those
And
are bad.
I, like you, do not like the words good and bad. I mean, food is
Hmm.
food, and nutrients and how we choose to put those in our body is about, looking at the body, as you said, as the vehicle for how we live our life. So,
Definitely. Yeah. So going back to your point about the words that it carries, I think with girls, what I see most when I work with teens, specifically, excuse me, around food or body image, is they're taking what they've again heard from a parent or a TV show, social media, and they're questioning themselves with their beliefs. So again, just like your mom said that you can't have that muffin that has 1,000 calories, they'll have a friend who will say that. They'll hear it in a movie, and then they start to say, well, is that true? Should I not be eating that? So it causes a lot of disconnect of, again, what they should. Again, I'll use that because that's how they feel. Should I be doing this? And then they look around them for that affirmation. So they'll look to, Googling how many calories does a muffin have, or they Google their weight. Should I be way less or way more? So what I try to teach them again is if you're always looking for outside validation or even confirmation, then you're giving your power away. Let's connect to how you feel. And again, going back to foods in terms of energy, not in terms of size. And how are you, do you sleep well? Do you wake up energized? Don't go back, don't look at someone else with what they're saying, because that can be something they learned from their parents. Take that self-awareness to look at how it's affecting them. And then they can feel empowered to make a decision or test it out and have the muffin and see how they feel. So they're taking it into their own control, where it's not something that they're continuing to look outside for validation.
and these are life skills. I mean,
Yeah,
this isn't just as you're talking, I'm thinking these are skills and empowerment for a young person that can serve them through life, looking,
absolutely.
tapping into their own values, not just about their body, but all sorts of things in life, and that self-awareness that is enormous and can be missing in some of us as adults to feel empowered and to feel self-aware and really tap into our internal compass, not the
Hmm.
external validation.
Absolutely. And I think what girls, when I walk them through what exercise I'll do with them in a coaching session, and I typically will see them after school or at night because they've had a full day. And I'll say, okay, Sue, walk me through your day. And they'll walk me through this amazingly busy, jam-packed day that teenagers live these days, where their bodies are doing so much and they're accomplishing so much. And I'm like, look at all that you're doing. I mean, give yourself credit for all your body's can do. And teenagers, again, these days, I feel like are a little bit overscheduled, but their schedules sometimes make me feel tired just listening to them. So having them understand, of course, you need to feel your body. Let's look at things you can do, not to take away, but add in. It seems like you're exercising 2 hours a day with lacrosse practice. Are you getting enough water? If you're staying up till 2 in the morning and getting 4 hours of sleep, that will catch up to you. So helping them see that this will only enhance the life that they're living. It's not looking at it from, oh, I'm not doing enough. They're actually doing more than enough. And how can they support their body in a busy teenager's life? And as they're, still growing and developing, seeing it as self-care is something that is their responsibility, and a parent can support that. But I really, really like the teens to know a parent can't feel what the teen is feeling in their body. They can't, say, okay, well, we were feeling tired, but the teen really has to express that. So parents, again, keeping that open communication, but bringing it back to the teenager self-awareness to, like I said, feel their own feelings instead of controlling them with food, focusing on appreciating all their bodies can do. Only they can feel that.
Mm. That is beautiful. Connecting to our own bodies is one of the most important things, correct, in terms of moving forward. So when you're working with these teen girls, I'm curious as to what aha moments look like for them. So, I mean, this must be such a heartwarming feeling for you working with some of these teens and seeing them able to move forward with a sense of, high self-esteem or higher than when they came to you, and empowerment. So
Yes.
can you describe some of the aha moments that perhaps you've seen recently and your team?
Yes, I love that idea. And I do use that word in my coaching, aha moments, because then it relates back to them having that moment for themselves. And I would say I have a couple that pop in my mind. One of my clients has gone through what I like to call gritty moments, hard things in life. And this past year has been difficult for her. And now she's coming out the other side, not where it's perfect, quote unquote. But she told me the other day, oh my gosh, I'm able to look back on where I was and see how far I've come to see the strength that I've had. And she was blown away that she can actually do that. And she never had experienced that before. And I think that's what I tell a lot of parents is these firsts that kids have or teens have, they don't have that perspective yet to say, oh, remember that one time I got over this? They're going through their first hard time or first heartbreak or first anything. And so when they have that connection of perspective to look back and build their self-esteem and confidence of I got through that as an aha moment, that's something you can't take away from them because they experienced it. And that shows that their brain is able to process that what they did to get through that is what they can do again in the future. So that one was huge for me. Another one, I think with a girl that I was working with, again, with more body image, she, gets stuck in the comparison trap, which I think we all do. And teenage girls are comparing themselves more to these standards online, which as a teen, again, I won't reveal my age, but there was no social media when I was a teenager. The only influence I had was magazines, and that wasn't, something that was around me all the time. So I think the comparison these days is harder for girls to navigate because it's just in their face all the time. And I had a client who said, we had thought about unfollowing people on social media that made her feel crappy. Like, why are you following all these online, celebrities or influencers that make you feel less than? And so she unfollowed anyone that made her feel less or just kind of had that icky feeling when she would look at it that she wasn't doing enough. And that aha moment was realizing that was her choice, right? She was choosing to follow these people. And so she also had the choice to unfollow. And that is taking the power because, social media isn't going anywhere. So it's nothing I like to blame teenagers' unhappiness on because there's a lot they can do to control it. And again, the aha moment was her recognizing that she was contributing by following these accounts to her unhappiness.
Wow. And taking that control is a huge, huge choice and
Yes.
and empowering feeling to take that
Yes.
control back.
Yes.
So in hearing these beautiful aha moments, and I love the first one you shared because, moving through gritty moments and seeing our growth and seeing our strength through them, because there are hard moments in life and those aren't going to go away as our kids grow up. I think that really helps hold on to the image and the I can do it.
Yes.
feeling
Yes.
that these children are developing.
Yes.
So,
And from a parent perspective, sorry to interrupt, parents can also circle back to that and say, Sue, do you remember how good you felt when you got through that? So it's not just saying parents, hey, I believe in you, Sue, you can do it. You link back the feeling that they felt and validate that, which is a parent's, that's what I always kind of teach parents. It has to be going back to what the teenager feels. Of course, it's beautiful that you believe in them too, but what if you could connect them remembering that they believed in themselves?
oh, absolutely. You're speaking my language. The
I
child,
love
the
it.
child has to own it. We have to
Yes.
encourage the child to own it. So I want to circle back to social media in just, a brief way, because I think this is really important. Your story about this young person who was able to, first choose to follow and then choose to unfollow, so she felt better taking control. If we don't have a teenager that is seeing that or is aware of that, from a parent's perspective, what do you encourage parents to do to support kids or young women
Hmm.
in terms of social media and social media practices? What are the few
Yes. This
guidelines
is
you can offer to our listening parents?
first, which I think we mentioned just in the beginning, have open discussions with your teens about what they feel in regards to society pressures, and just so you can understand what's influencing them the most and how these standards of beauty online are making them feel. First, you have to understand, what they're feeling, because a lot of times moms will talk to girls and girls will say, well, I wasn't really feeling that way. This is how I see it. So start with an open discussion and ask the teen, how do you feel about social media? How is it influencing your life? Do you feel it's a positive thing? Get them to give feedback so you're not pushing your own insecurities onto them.
Hmm.
And so at home, talk openly about their social experiences. Most of social experiences that teens have now are through the internet communication, seeing what people have done on the weekends. Everything is online. And so it's a different experience than parents saying, like, oh, how was hanging out with your friend this weekend? You have to really ask them about their social experience online. And then to that regard, ask what pressure they feel. Do they feel they need to fit in with, again, how they look? Do they feel like they need to post certain things to get more likes that really aren't authentic or true to their values? And once they share how they're feeling, then the parents can kind of come up with a game plan together with the teen to navigate that. So XYZ, if the teen said, yeah, I do feel this pressure to conform, then you have that open discussion of what realistic standards look like and how comparison makes you feel and what you've done as a parent to navigate that, and remind them of their uniqueness and all the strengths they have. So once you understand where they're struggling, then you can problem solve. And then I would say a lot of social media girls, teens, young women, even boys use as a coping mechanism. So they'll go online to numb out or to distract themselves, to see, someone else having a better life or worse life if they want to make themselves feel better. So thirdly, I would say parents help explore healthy coping methods for emotions that they feel. So they're not using social media as a way to escape. So again, that's more other options for self-regulation and helping teens understand that numbing process, because it's become so, oh, I'll just pick up my phone and something will distract me, is taking away from that learning opportunity to actually feel their emotions.
Mm. What great, helpful tips. And all of them seem to revolve around connection, around the strong
Mm,
bonds that we have with our children, and how important that connection is to be able to have these open dialogues and
yes.
conversations. And one of the words that I think is great to use in these conversations, and correct me if you don't agree, but it's one of my favorite words in coaching and in life, is I'm curious how, or I'm
Mm,
curious what the pressure of social media feels like, or I'm curious if you find yourself caught up in comparisons, or because it doesn't assume that our children
yes.
are there, although we can probably guess that they are, because 99.9% of kids end up in this in a little way, shape, or form. So the word curious just softens and brings neutrality.
Yes, I love that, and that's a word I use in my coaching all the time, because I'm not perfect and assuming I know. I'm like, tell me more. Like, I'm curious, yes, asking questions, not in an annoying way. Teens will say my mom asked too many questions. So
Right.
learn, again, teens are actually they're more self-aware than we think if we give them an option to share and if we listen and then give them even the option to give a solution. So I have an exercise I do with parents and their child or teen, and parents will say, well, she does this and it annoys me. And then the teen has to come up with a solution. So if your parents are frustrated with this, what's something that instead of the parents having the solution, the teen has the solution, and vice versa. If the teens are like, oh, my parents are, a big one is they ask too many questions, which, we think is a way of connecting. So I say, okay, well, if that's really hard for you to connect, if they ask questions, what would you rather them do? Help your parents, like help them succeed. Well, maybe we could go do something together and they could just listen, or we could have an activity. So have the teenager show you as a parent how to connect, because
Absolutely.
they know, but
Yeah.
most of the time parents, and again, this is not a bad thing, it's just how we're wired, is we think, oh, I'm going to carve out this time and we're going to connect and this is how it's going to be, without even asking and getting the teen's input if that's something that makes them feel comfortable or connect, or like you said, are you coming from a curious place or are you coming from a controlling place?
Yeah. And connection is about two people coming together and what serves them both. And so
Yes.
seeing our children clearly in what works and learning from them, as you so beautifully pointed out, just as we're teaching our children, they're teaching us. And so being open
Exactly.
to that connection in that way, that we're going to learn more about our kids based on what's working for them and what's not.
Yes.
So beautiful. So one thing I'm sure you would agree that as parents, it's important that we're modeling healthy ways to connect with social media and to look at our own experiences in terms of, are we numbing? Is that being used as a coping skill in our own life, or are we using social media in a way that we're modeling the behaviors we want to see in our children?
Absolutely. That's probably the toughest part about being a parent these days, is we're all, as parents and adults, wrapped up in a lot of the same pressures from social media or this technology addiction, and teens see that. So if you're practicing something that the preach and practice aren't congruent, then they're not going to follow what you're doing. So being a good role model isn't just telling them what to do, right? It's actually living that way. And parents, I think, have a lot of pressure on themselves to be these perfect parents because there is a lot on their plate. So don't be afraid to talk to your teen about, hey, this is how I'm practicing self-care. Hey, I also struggle with picking up my phone when I shouldn't, or when we're having a conversation, I'm distracted. Be human with them, and then show them the ways that you're working on correcting that or growing through that, just like they're going to be doing. But yes, teens will, like you said in the beginning, they do listen to the words and that influences them. But I am a believer that they watch and are more influenced by what you do than what you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. A long time ago, it used to be, do what I say, not what I do. I can still
I
hear my
know.
mother saying that.
I know.
Those days are long gone because
They
they're
are.
actually watching and
Hmm.
observing and seeing that candy closet and all those
Exactly.
other things. So, but one thing this is a beautiful episode, I think, that lots of our parents listening can connect with. And I think one of the most important things to take away too is be gentle with yourself as a parent, because this
Absolutely.
is hard. It's not about perfection. We don't always know all the answers. And so it's really important to take good care of yourself and to be gentle with yourself as you're going on this journey of working and raising and walking, through life with these beautiful souls
Yes,
we
it's
call our
so
children.
much. I
Yeah.
think that's why I'm so happy you have this outlet for parents to listen to, that they have to give themselves more credit than I think parents do give themselves these days. And the expectations that the parents put on themselves a lot of times to produce this, perfect child, or, that is something that they can really take a step back and look at. What is like normal stress that teenagers are going through that they're dealing with? Oh, my teens, getting into something that's kind of dangerous, or tried drinking for the first time. Yes, that is something to be stressed about. But other things that teens do, parents take on that stress because, they're wanting it to be different, or they are trying to control it. And then that takes up their time of their self-care, and they're wrapped up in the teenager's life and they forget to live their own life. And that, I think, is, the whole helicopter parent, or the new one I've heard is the snowplow parent. So you go before your kids and you plow all the snow perfectly, so there's this paved path for them just to walk into this easy life. And you have to number one, that's not going to help them in life, but clear your own path first. You have to have that for you before you can help your child. So I think a lot of what parents, again, need to hear, like you said, is the self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-care for them. And I know it might feel selfish, but trust me that teenagers respect and see that as a strength more than a weakness.
Absolutely. And it models that we all should be taking care of ourselves, no matter how old we are, whether we're 2, 13, 50, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Sarah, share with me and of course with our listeners, where can people find you?
Yes. So I, as you mentioned, have my own coaching company called The Real Girl Lifestyle, and that's therealgirllifestyle.com. So that's where all my information is on my coaching programs. And then the foundation that I run, which we mentioned in the beginning, the Grace by Grit Foundation, that's a website that shows the scholarship information as well as the programs we do nationwide for girls to learn about grit, and that's gracedbygrit.com. So those are the two places you can find me.
Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show and having you share all the incredible knowledge and wisdom that you have in working with our teen girls as well as their parents.
Thank you. It has been my honor to be here with you.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. And remember, every moment is a new moment for conscious connections.
Thanks for listening to Conscious Parents, Thriving Kids. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share this podcast with a friend. And be sure to give us some stars and a favorable review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in.